Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Shloka a day. Today's Shloka is Shloka number 45 of chapter 6. Prayatnadhyatmanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati parangatim. Prayatnadyatmanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati parangatim. Prayatnadyatmanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati parangatim. Please recite after me. Prayatnadyatmanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati parangatim. Prayatnadyatmanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati parangatim. Prayatnadyatmanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati parangatim. Prayatnadyatmanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati parangatim. Once more. Prayatnadyatmanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati parangatim. Word for word meaning and translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prayatnat, by rigid practice. Yatamanaha, endeavoring. To, and. Yogi, a transcendentalist. Samshuddha, washed off. Kilbishaha, all of whose sins. Aneka, after many, many janma, births, samsiddhaha, having achieved perfection, tataha, thereafter, yati, attains, param, the highest, gatim, destination. Translation. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So we've been discussing this section of shlokas 38 to 45, that if the mind deviates from the goal, what is the destination of the yogi? And today is the last shloka in that particular section, which is what happens to the unsuccessful yogi. So the Lord uses the words prayatnad yatamanastu, and that means striving very hard, harder than before. And the word tu indicates that their current endeavor is deeper than what they've done in their previous lifetime when they were unsuccessful in completing that journey. So let us say that in the past life, you put in 60% effort and you have a new life now. Maybe you're putting 70% effort. But effort is must. Right? Nothing happens automatically for us. So the sadhaka understands that it is indeed a supreme fortune for us to be able to make some spiritual advancement and eventually return back to Lord Krishna. Now, on the one hand, you could say, we can think positively that ultimately we will reach Krishna. So one way to look at this is that ultimately we will reach Krishna. But for a sadhaka, there is also that other worry. But how many lifetimes is it going to take? And do I really have to wait that many lifetimes before I can go back to Krishna? So for a genuine sadhaka, there is a sense of urgency that we don't want to delay this any further, because we don't know how many lifetimes we've already been attempting this. And when we come to the understanding by reading Srila Prabhupada's books and the Acharya's commentaries, both on the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, we must come to the conclusion that there is no guarantee. The guarantee is that you will be born into certain types of families, a very auspicious family, a very wealthy family, a very spiritual family. But other than that, there is no guarantee, because you have to still make an endeavor. And as we discussed, temptations will always be there. So as long as there are temptations, that should put a little bit of fear in us that we want to practice this with some sense of urgency. And we don't waste any more time in getting back to Krishna. But interestingly, there is a nice pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has a disciple by the name Mukunda. Now, Mukunda committed some offense and the Lord was not very happy with him. And the Lord made a statement that that Mukunda has to wait 10 million lifetimes before he gets to see the Lord again. Imagine being told you have to wait 10 million lifetimes before you get to see the Lord again. I mean, you will just die right there on the spot and not even want to try anymore if you've been given this information. But such is the condition of a devotee who sees the glass as half full and not as half empty. In this case, when Mukunda heard that the Lord had chastised him by saying he has to wait for 10 million lifetimes before he gets to associate with Lord Chaitanya again, he begins to dance in joy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when word got back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that this Mukunda has lost his mind dancing in ecstasy, happy to know that he will see the Lord again. So Mukunda was focused on the fact that the Lord had cursed him, apparently, but in such a way that there was a guarantee that he was going to see the Lord. It's just that he has to wait 10 million lifetimes. So what was Mukunda focusing on? The fact that he would have an opportunity to see the Lord, ultimately. Not the fact that it's going to take him 10 million lifetimes. So a devotee is always optimistic about going back to God, but at the same time, the devotee also always has to work with that sense of urgency that they don't want to waste even one lifetime getting back to the Supreme Lord. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard Mukunda's reaction, he was so moved, thinking, what kind of devotee and disciple do I have? He's so happy that he's going to wait 10 million lifetimes to see me. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called for Mukunda, although he had banished him and didn't want to see him again. He called for his disciple to come back and he gave him his personal mercy. And of course, reversed whatever he had mentioned. So what the Lord is indicating in this shloka is that we must have determination. And with that determination, we should be willing to pay whatever price it takes us to get Krishna. So the other thing is the Lord is cautioning that each one of us, the yogi, has to come to that level of strict practice for attaining perfection. So whether it's in this lifetime or next lifetime or 10 million lifetimes from now, it is clear that our sadhana has to be perfect. So I was reading something that His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu had written on this particular shloka. So he was saying that if we have to eventually practice this level of strictness, this level of sadhana, so why should we be easy on ourselves in this life? When we know that eventually we have to reach this level of perfection. So why postpone fighting our mind and senses and intelligence to another life when we can give it our best shot in this life itself? So why should we subject ourselves to another life of potential misery where we keep putting off that fight of perfection? So spiritual growth centers on purification through your sadhana and simultaneously an elevation of consciousness through sadhana. So our consciousness is the asset that we carry forward with us from life to life. So the more spiritual impressions that we can make into our consciousness, then the asset is far more potent in a future life to carry us forward. So unlike material assets, your spiritual asset is always permanent in the Lord's mind. And that is why we say any sukriti that you perform, even unintentionally, will always stay with you. There's no deduction from your account, unlike the karma account where you keep adding and subtracting to offset your pious versus your impious activities. When it comes to spiritual credits, your credits are permanent. It's eternal. So nobody touches that. So Krishna is saying one can attain perfection after many, many, many births of stringent practice. So that should give us an indication of how strict we have to be with ourselves when it comes to our sadhana.